The last thing to discuss in this set of lectures is about subqueries. And a subquery is simply a query that is within a query. And once you kind of conceptualize this as nesting queries together, it makes a little more sense. So let's take a look a little deeper at subqueries. First, we can define a subquery as nested queries. That means a query within a query. And it allows us to use the results of one query, the inner query, inside the outer query. The inner query is used as a reference, and the outer query selects values that we want to see from that reference. So that leads to two types of subqueries. One is a regular subquery that is only evaluated one time, and then that value is returned and used by the outer query. The inner query result is independent of the outer query, and it doesn't matter because there is no connection between the inner query and the outer query other than the outer query uses values from the inner query, and that's called a regular subquery. A correlated subquery is one that is evaluated for each and every row. The result of the inner query depends on values in the outer query. This one is very resource intensive, but it may actually be less resource intense than joins. So here's an example. A normal query says list all employees whose salary is greater than 1,000, and we had that example in a previous video. So we have just the last name, the salary from the employees table where the salary is greater than 1,000. Now, if we want a regular subquery, we list all the employees whose salary is greater than the average salary of all employees. So now instead of the salary greater than 1,000, we want the salary for an employee to be greater than the average salary for all employees. So this is an example of a regular subquery. We go and calculate in the inner query the average of all salaries for all employees, and then compare that value in the outer query and look at that for every row in the outer query. How does it match up with that average? A correlated subquery would be one where we wanted to list all employees whose salary is greater than all employees within their own jobs category. So the first thing we need to know is what's the average salary in the person's job category. And notice that we have two aliases here. We have an E for the outer query, and we have E1 for the inner query. So I want the average salary for E1, the employees table there, where the inner query E1 job ID is equal to the outer query E job ID. So for each row, I'm going to calculate this and determine if the salary is greater than the average salary for other employees in that job category. So we'll take a look in the next video at some examples of correlated and regular subqueries.